On this episode of AVWeek, InfoComm 2020 is going virtual. The impact of COVID-19 on live staging and events industry and what we can do to help it. And Verizon is buying Bluejeans. All that and more. Next on AVWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 452, recorded Friday, April 17th, 2020. Bright and shiny.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron and by
Sure, sound extraordinary.
And by Buy-In.
This is AVWeek, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered for this week, first and foremost, a fantastic content producer and a very dear friend that I've read for a number of years. Her name is Kirsten Nelson. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So glad to be here.
All of y'all are on the East Coast this week. I just realized that. Steve Greenblatt is from Control Concepts, also the host of our State of Control program that looks at the control and automation segment. Welcome, sir.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Tim.
Absolutely. And last but not least, my buddy, Mr. Brock McGinnis from Avitas, who is a new consultant, but also a longtime AV industry pro and a good buddy as well. Thank you, sir.
Good to be here, Tim, even though I'm not actually on the East Coast.
You're in Eastern time zone. I'm sorry. You are correct.
Yes, there we go.
He's actually in GTA, and I learned that term this week at our virtual event. It does not stand for Grand Theft Auto, which is what I thought it stood for. It stands for the Greater Toronto Area if you are in Canada.
Exactly. And I happen to be right dab smack in the middle of Toronto.
All right, there you go. So I mentioned this week, thank you for everybody. Actually, Steve and Brock both were part of our event this week. We called it LFH, Learn From Home. While you work from home, 3 days, virtual conference, great keynotes, great education sessions.
Yeah.
So by the time, I'm going to say by the time this posts, but sometime next week, all of the sessions will be up on our website. So you can check all those out. All the keynotes are up. So Brock's session is up. But Steve's is not yet, so you can go watch Brock and Jeremy Ellisar. And
if you have absolutely nothing else to do.
Oh, stop it! You guys did fantastic. All right, let's kick this off. Interesting week this week when it comes to news, and I'm not making that up. First and foremost, this is from Verizon's website. Didn't think I'd ever cover a story on Verizon for AV, but Verizon Business enters into agreement to acquire Bluejeans. If you haven't heard this news already, Verizon Business today announced that it has entered into a definitive agreement to acquire Bluejeans Network, a trusted enterprise-grade video conferencing and event platform. The acquisition expands Verizon's immersive unified communications portfolio. Bluejeans cloud-based video service currently serves a wide variety of business segments, from small organizations to some of the world's largest multinational brands. Brock, I am going to start on this with you. My first initial reaction was, why? Why is this? There are a couple of implications here that I'm going to get to at the very end. I'm going to let you guys comment and talk about this. But my question, I guess, is first to you, Brock, is what is Verizon thinking with this move?
I think Verizon is a communications company, and this is a communications medium that they didn't previously participate in. Bluejeans is a really well-established brand name at this point. It would be an attractive target, for Verizon. And how else does Verizon grow? How do they show their shareholders that they're doing something new? So, from a business perspective, they went, oh, that's bright and shiny, and everybody's talking about Zoom. So, maybe we need a Zoom of our own. Let's go buy that one.
All right, Mr. Greenblatt, same question. What are they thinking, and does this make business sense from Verizon and their stockholders' point of view?
It would seem to me, I think that this whole pandemic has certainly made the the visibility of online collaboration and conferencing and these types of tools valuable. And although we use Zoom and AVNation's using Zoom, and that seems to be the go-to resource, I'm sure that there are other opportunities out there, and for them, it's a great time for them to get into the game and to be able to expand their offerings. And Bluejeans actually has been around a lot longer than Zoom and does have a following, and also had some niches in the fact that in the beginning it was one of the first to be able to to connect some of the collaborative proprietary platforms, right? So there may be some intellectual property or some type of tools and advancements that Bluejeans can offer that Verizon can take to the next level. It's possible that Bluejeans may be tapped out at how far they can go with their company on their own, and Verizon certainly has a following and certainly has a broad audience. And another article that I saw just talked about how this gives Verizon more of an entry point into the B2B space.
That was one of the first biggest selling points of Bluejeans, Steve, if you remember. And this was 10, 12 years ago. The fact that at that time, Polycom and Tandberg, before they got bought by Cisco, you couldn't get there, right? It was difficult to connect those two types of platforms. LifeSci is the same way. And this was one of those bridges that brought all of them together. You're right. And that was one of the most first attractive things about Bluejeans.
And I think they were the ones that kind of coined the term virtual meeting room, were they not?
They may have been. Them or Life Size One. I don't remember, Brock, actually, anything about it.
Yeah.
Kirsten, what does this do to the landscape and to the playground of the over 200 different soft codecs that are out there? And yes, there are over 200, I think it's 250 somewhere. Wow. This puts Bluejeans back in play with the likes of WebEx, with the likes of GoToMeeting and Zoom now, with the bankroll of Verizon, but also with their network backend.
Yeah, I think based on what they put in that statement, I think they were trying to make a play for where the growth areas are. They actually called them high growth areas of telemedicine, distance learning, and field service work. And based on what I've seen since this pandemic, the number of just average doctor's offices that are suddenly doing telehealth, I mean, they're seeing very clear opportunity on a very ground level. We're talking about so many more opportunities just opened up. And if Verizon can get in there, and they already have like a bunch of enterprise access to those kinds of places. So they're basically trying to catch up with everybody who suddenly needs telemedicine, distance learning, and all the people who are now doing remote field service, which of course there's a lot of talk about remote field service in general once like HoloLens takes over and people can do a lot of remote support, social distance style. So I think they're just seeing that this is going to continue, and we're always going to need backup for, other waves, other similar situations. So they just want to be in there, like you're saying.
Yeah. I have to bring this question up, and I do for two reasons. First of all, if I don't, my lawyer in training, Josh Rago, will call me on Monday and yell at me. But secondly, in all seriousness, net neutrality, and yes, Brock, it does not impact you right now. It may eventually, depending on what your government does. But net neutrality is a huge issue with this specific purchase. Briefly, net neutrality allows the people that control the pipelines to adjust and constrict their bandwidth based on applications. If this goes through, there is a scenario where Verizon could prioritize Bluejeans traffic over, I don't know, let's say Zoom traffic, or life-size traffic, or WebEx traffic. That is an issue. Whether or not that will be brought up as the FTC looks at this, who knows? But that is something that we have to look at. I don't have an answer. Obviously, none of us know that right now, but there is a possibility where Verizon is a service provider, is a communication service provider, and now they're purchasing a software that absolutely rides on their rails. So something to watch.
I don't get that, Tim.
In what way?
How the throttling would actually be acceptable to Verizon's customers. If you're Citibank and Verizon is your bandwidth provider, and as Citibank you choose to use Zoom rather than Bluejeans, would you not drop Verizon as a service provider if they throttled your communication medium of source? They're not a monopoly. People have other choices.
They do have other choices, but the question is, number one, do you realize that, right? Is it the CEO that realizes it, or is it just the tech that there's 3 levels down from the CEO that realizes what's going on, right? And if the CEO realizes that he can use Bluejeans with no problems, and Zoom, every time he uses Zoom, he has nothing but issues. I'm not trying to disparage most CEOs, but at that point in time, they'll just use Bluejeans.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a valid point, Brock. I just think there are definitely areas to watch here as this moves forward. So I mentioned our LFH virtual summit this week. Great keynotes. Kicked off on Tuesday morning with CEO of AVIXA, Mr. Dave Labuscas. He was kind enough to stop by, share his thoughts on the current crisis, but also take a look at what the industry looks like going forward. Interesting thing that Dave just kind of put in there and said, we'll know more about the rest of the week. InfoComm is going virtual. They're calling it InfoComm 2020 Connected. It is a virtual trade show. And to be completely frank and transparent, they still don't know entirely what that means. There's a survey actually now. If you go to InfoComm's website, infocommshow.org, you can help them make the program, right? They're asking what you'd like to see. They're asking you what you'd like to see happen here. Steve, from your standpoint, both as somebody who has taught at InfoComm, but also you're an attendee, obviously, for years. What does that mean to you, the fact that they're trying something in this state, in the current situation we're in, but also what is it that you'd like to see?
Well, I'll kind of point back to this past week, the Learn From Home summit that you put on, which was fantastic. And I think that just is a proof of concept that this model works and that this can really draw a crowd. And it does still provide the sense of community and connectivity and learning and opportunity to engage. It just seemed so energizing and so natural, and it was it fulfilled a need. I don't know where we're going to be in June. That's one of the challenges that we're I think going to be facing, because if we're starting to transition out of this current situation, is that going to impact the effectiveness of this type of an event? I'm not quite sure. But I do think what's nice about this and others choosing this medium is that it opens the door for everybody to attend that wants to, whereas going to a trade show in person, only a limited number of people can attend. And I think that if the offerings are broad enough, a lot of people can get more out of InfoComm, as well as even people outside the industry. And I think that this type of exposure is really incredible. One of the things that I did for this past week when I was speaking is just posted on social media. Now that's not limited to our industry. So the amount of people that could actually find and engage and learn more about what we're doing, it is magnified because of this type of a format. So I think it's a great idea. It's a great opportunity for AVIXA, and it's also a great opportunity for those who want to be able to be more involved.
All right. Kirsten, you've been involved with the production of InfoComm for a number of years. When you saw this, what was some of your first reactions of oh, that's cool, we can do this now, or oh, that's cool, we can do this now? Or does it give you as a producer a little bit more flexibility and maybe broaden some horizons that maybe you didn't have when it's all in person?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that all the work that I do with InfoComm, I actually really have always loved working with the AVIXA organization, because they are always thinking ahead in terms of what other options and other venues and other avenues they can take to sharing content and engaging their audience. So the level of the conversational shift that was happening, and the curiosity that's being employed, like you were saying, they're actually putting a survey out, asking people what they want. And I think that they're really seeking actual input about what we could do with this. I find it to be really inspiring. I think that, what Dave Lebuscus was saying in his keynote at your Learn from Home Summit was that there's going to be a hybrid space that's going to happen for a while. Even as we return to public gatherings, I think there's going to be this sort of in-between space where people are gathering. And I think people are still going to embrace some of the remote aspects that we have really all maximized these last few weeks. So I think that this event is going to reflect what our industry might actually be serving. We're going to actually be showing people what's possible with the projects that they might actually be building for their clients. Months ago, kind of as this was beginning, I was talking to some really big architecture firms, and they were saying as this began that they were anticipating that real collaboration rooms, the ones that we were promised, after 9/11, the ones during 2008, any downturn, people start talking about less travel. They talk about more robust collaboration rooms. Well, I think this time a lot of the big architecture firms are already seeing that this will be something everyone needs as a contingency plan now. So by InfoComm going virtual, it's almost like they can use it as an opportunity to show what's possible while their audience also can turn around and sell that to their clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Brock, same kind of question when it comes to, you were listening to Mr. Lebuscus. What were some of your first initial reactions, either as he said it or as a little bit more information has come out over the last few days about what this means to you, but also, to the folks that that work in the industry on the manufacturer side?
The manufacturers part of what AVIXA is going to do with a virtual InfoComm, I think is going to be very, very difficult. We can already access every one of those manufacturers' websites, and they're all offering training these days. There's webinars for days, so many that you can't possibly participate in them. And if AVIXA is looking at this as a big source of revenue from the manufacturers, they're going to have to be incredibly creative to present a compelling reason for me to go to a virtual Crestron booth or a virtual Kramer booth or a virtual Middle Atlantic booth. The education opportunities are spectacular, and after every trade show, all the AV folks, and there's nearly 3,000 of them in my Twitter list now that I follow. There is a hue and cry for to post online all of the education and other presenters that occur at trade shows. Well, this is AVIXA's chance to record forever and begin to have a library of all of the amazing education that typically occurs at an InfoComm. And the center stage presentations, Kirsten, that you've been part of, the presentations that even, I don't know if you had time to see any of them at ISE, Tim. That's become one of the main draws for going to the shows, is that there's unique content by spectacular presenters. It's a bit like your Learn from Home. I was so pleased for AVNation to have been the industry leader in producing an online conference. I thought it was brilliant. And the thing that attracted me the most was, on Tuesday morning, I listened to Dave Lebuscus, and on Wednesday morning, I listened to Randy Klein. And I never get an opportunity to hear people like that present live. Well, those are the people that I want to hear at at a virtual InfoComm for sure. And then to be able to go back and take one of Steve's courses that I've never had the time at InfoComm to take, but I can now take it in January if it's part of a library, and I will pay for that. I will be happy to pay for that education because InfoComm has the best educators in the industry all in one place, and you're only able to choose 5 classes because that's all you've got time for. Well, there are, I don't know, Kirsten, are there 350 classes? Are there 500 classes?
A lot.
The center stage or main stage stuff, I only ever had time to hear 1 or 2 during the course of a show. I could hear them all now, and that is a tremendous opportunity, and that is something that will carry this association forward.
I'm actually working on the Tide conference this year too, and that right away we started recontextualizing how that event could reflect and show what's possible. In fact, everybody who was going to speak at Tide immediately became engaged with us in creating a new potential way for all of us to gather and interact with some of the, like what you said, some of the new content that people are attracted to at these shows. So we're actually hosting with InfoComm. I've been hosting a thing called the Cohort Lab, where we're exploring what we can build together. So
fantastic.
We're now taking some of those people who are working in the experience design space and they're helping us build what we might do with this virtual InfoComm. So I think it's going to be pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
Let me ask a kind of an overarching question here before we hit our last story. One of our cohorts, Craig McCormick, works for Commercial Integrator, has been talking about this for years. I mean, and I have to give it to him. He really, really has. And something that we did with PSNI I want to say a year ago, is we live streamed on Facebook one session, right? From PSNI standpoint, it was a huge success. Craig was like, this is exactly what should happen. He wrote a piece in Commercial Integrator, and I agree with him. On some level, this should happen. Dave Labusca said something about the industry changing and the industry evolving. Regardless of whether we go back to Orlando in 2021 or we skip 2 years, God forbid, for the InfoComm show, and we go back to Vegas in 2022, and that's the next time we all get together. Does this fundamentally change the fact that they're doing a virtual one this year? Does it change future InfoComm shows to incorporate more of the virtual, to incorporate more of the people who aren't physically able to travel? Yeah.
I think so. I think to the benefit of everybody, as we're all saying, as Steve and Brock were just saying, I think one of the things I heard from one of my experienced designers that I'm working with on the Tide program, he said the coolest thing about this is no longer are we confined to only 3 days. As Brock was saying, we can take these classes anytime. And there's so much that people wish they could see, so many extra programs. And I think this is great. We get to stretch it out over a year. I think, yes, as humans, we do really want to see each other again in real life. And I believe we will. But in the meantime, we do get to continue to learn from the huge amount of programs they provide. So I think the exhibitors will find creative ways. In fact, I've been talking with people all week long who work in the event space in AV. I just did an article about going beyond Zoom with your virtual event. And every single one of them has been creating really, really clever new ways to do virtual events. And a lot of them are going to be working directly with exhibitors and manufacturers to make product announcements that feel, quite frankly, a little bit more like entertainment and less like a webinar. And I think we're going to probably see the people who, if we can get InfoComm to connect in that way, say like, look, there's an opportunity to go beyond just going onto a screen and saying what you're introducing this year. There's other creative ways we can do storytelling with your product announcement. I think this could get pretty interesting pretty fast. So.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as the folks take advantage of it, right? There will certainly be those folks who just kind of do the webinar thing, and there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It gets the job done. Yeah.
It gets the job done. But there are
Yeah.
there are just some opportunities here that we didn't have before. Absolutely. Wrapping up here, our buddy Kate Calderon wrote for SCN about how COVID-19's impact on live staging and events. Kirsten, I'm going to start with you on this one, actually, because not only are you involved in that with the InfoComm side, but you also have a lot of friends in this industry. I referenced this story, and I'll reference it really quickly again. I referenced it this past week during our event. AVNation is well, we are not marketers. I'm not a marketing person, and so we use the help of other people, and we were in the process of looking at another firm here, and they also do live events. And in conversations with the team there, we had a conversation on Friday afternoon, and by the end of the day, South by Southwest had canceled. That is what I'm going to say is the start of Hell Week for people in the events space, because by the end of the next week, NAB had canceled. Digital CSE had postponed. They have since rescheduled. Enterprise Connect had canceled. And these are just folks in the AV space, not all the other events. Abby Wolf from Corey's AV was quoted in the article saying, we went from hearing a couple of stories to watching every event in our busiest time of the year get canceled in the course of 4 or 5 days. What does COVID-19 mean to this industry, to this part of our industry, and what can we as AV people do?
And I don't want to sound like I'm being too Pollyanna-ish here, but I really loved that article that Kate wrote, because it truly, there's two things we noticed right away. First, community. Yep. People immediately started connecting with each other. How can we help each other? Obviously, the amount of strain that's been put on people's businesses is unprecedented and will continue to have a ripple effect. However, the other thing we always see in our industry is, for lack of a better word, innovation. Innovation. I know it's an overused word, but I have been inspired by every single conversation I've had with people, every article I've written, everyone I'm working with for my programs. Immediately, the sparks of innovation and ideas that were coming from people, I can't even tell you. It's how I get through my day. Anytime I feel challenged by what's ahead, I call somebody up and they tell me some new idea they're working on. To solve this, to change this, or to somehow serve either people in their community, maybe like we were seeing in that article, the examples of people who are manufacturing stuff for PPE and finding other ways to contribute. I think, so there's a combination of things happening. We're reaching outside our industry. We're trying to make sure that things like commencements can happen, major life events can still happen in a meaningful, human-centric, connected way. And that's what gives me goosebumps about this whole business, is these people are connecting and making sure that these things can still happen and people can still have a memorable event.
Mr. McGinnis, you have been around the industry and you were involved with a lot of live staging and events in your previous lives. You've also lived through a couple of downturns. I would argue that nothing that in your lifetime has happened like this, and none of our lifetimes has happened like this. How do we recover? How do we rebound from this?
So SARS in 2003 hit Toronto very hard. And every live event in Toronto was canceled at that time. The half of the company that I worked for at the time, Westbury National, was a live events company, and it was disastrous. You had to lay people off. You don't want to. But you have to, because for the company to survive, people have to go. And the payments for equipment carry on. The rent, the rent carries on. So we're going to lose some businesses in the industry. I don't think there's any question about that. But what Kirsten said about innovation and resilience and creative people, live events people are the most creative folks in the world. They're unbelievable problem solvers because the band's going to go on stage at 9 o'clock and you're going to do whatever it takes to put that band on stage at 9 o'clock. And they're also very adaptable. Nobody's just an audio woman or a lighting guy anymore. People can do a whole bunch of things. And so I think we're going to see, because I don't care about the companies. Nobody cares about the companies. The name on the door will change. The work is still going to go on. Somebody's going to lose a whack of money, and hopefully it's just a big bank. But the people will take care of themselves. There's already a number of organizations that have sprung up to help feed all the folks who work at convention centers and work at sports venues and are part of the movie industry, the concert industry, everything else that has been closed. Whether it takes 3 months or 6 months or 13 months or 16 months, we're going to want to gather again. We're going to want to be together as people, not just our industry, but as people. And we're going to want those exceptional experiences to occur. And the live events people will come back. In the interim, they may be cooking pizza, or they may be painting houses or digging ditches. And that's okay, because they'll do that, and then they'll come back strong with a whole bunch of new ideas. That's the nature of the beast. Oh, and some of them, as happened within our company, is that some of those live events people became installation people.
Yeah, and that's not a bad idea either. So
yeah, they became programmers.
Mr. Greenblatt, last question, last statement on this. How do we help each other, and how do we get through this?
So, as is mentioned in the article, the AV community is very supportive of each other. There's a lot of network. You can always find somebody who knows somebody who can help you. There's
Yes.
and it's just a very supportive group. I think that there's obviously a lot of talented people, and one of the things I think that this industry starves for is very talented people. So I'm hoping that we would be able to maybe take somebody who is doing, as Brock said, who was doing something in live events, and find an opportunity to put their skills to use somewhere else within an organization or in a different part of the industry. I think we could also learn a lot from each other too, because it's, although we're doing the same things sometimes, or we're using some of the same technology, those groups are very different, and overlapping and intertwining and being more collaborative. We may learn how to solve problems. We may learn how to do things differently, doing things better. There could be a broadening of skill sets that way. Certainly taking the opportunity to offer training, which so many of the manufacturers and organizations within the industry have been doing, and been waiving any fees or eliminating any boundaries there. We should all be such a stronger group and industry at the end of this, because of the fact, if we're doing a good job of investing in ourselves and in each other.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, that'll do it for us. Real quickly before we go, this is not necessarily, this is for anybody in the U.S. How about that? The U.S., this is from CBS News, the U.S. Small Business Administration said Thursday morning that the Paycheck Protection Program, commonly known as the PPP, would not be accepting any more applications for the $349 billion program. The agency reported approving more than 1.6 million PPP loan applications, totaling more than $339 billion from over 4,900 learning institutions. Now, if you've been funded, congratulations, good for you. If you have a loan number, that apparently is a good sign. If you do not, hold tight, is what we're being told, because there very well may be a second round of funding. Some people are telling me that even if you haven't started the process, to do so anyway, because then you're already in line for that. So apparently the PPP is out of money for right now, but they're looking at putting more in now. So thank you all so much. Ms. Kirsten Nelson, where can people get a hold of you if they are so inclined?
Yeah, thank you again for having me. They can find me on Twitter at Kirsten Nelson.
Very good. Mr. McInnes, thank you, sir.
I would have thought you had an email address too, Kirsten, but you know,
You want me to spell my entire email?
Dude.
It's really long.
That's how spam happens, Brock.
I am also on Twitter at Brock McGinnis.
Do you have an email address?
I do, and it's Brock at avatos.com.
Very good. Mr. Greenblatt, thank you, sir.
Thank you. You can find me on social media at Steve Greenblatt. My company, Control Concepts, at controlconcepts.net. My contact information is on the website if you want to find that, the email, and even my cell phone number. But I have to do justice by Rich Ragosa and Tim by mentioning our Control podcast called The State of Control here on AVNation. And we'd like to hear what you think of the show, and we're always open to new ideas and new guests, so please reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Just check them out. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me on the Twitters. I have no idea at this point what I've been talking about all week. But go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Some great people put a lot of hard work in it. Speaking of hard work, and Brock, you were very kind, but I had very little to do with this week and last week's. We have a great team, not just here. But a great group of people. I think in my last count, over 50 people helped us put together 2 incredible virtual conferences in a very short amount of time. It was a great event, not because of anything that I did, but because of the people that came around us. Jeremy Burkhart and Mitch Klein keynoted our first 2, kicked off our first 2 days at the residential side. Dave Labuscus, Randy Klein, and Anna Chontas from QSC. I had to practice that one, but she did a fantastic job. All 3 of them did, and great speakers all around. Great education. Again, I'm just the guy lucky enough to sit behind a mic and say that person there you need to go listen to. So, thank you for coming along and joining us. Go by the website. You'll find almost all of the education, from the commercial side. Brock mentioned the fact that this was a proven concept. It was. So the residential one, we didn't get all the education. We got a lot of it. Most of the second day, a lot of the first day. We got all of the education for commercial side, though. All the keynotes, all that will be up on our website. I'm going to say by the end of next week. Let's just put it that way. We're downloading all of them today and tomorrow between myself and producer Mitchell and Lenore, our editor. We'll get all those up. But seriously, thank you guys so much. If you go by our website, you can go by our supporter section. These are the folks that help us financially, help us bring you AVWeek, help us do that. Even though we didn't charge anything for anybody, but they still, paid Mitchell's salary so he could keep doing it. But check those out, folks, and let them know that you appreciate them. Also, check out some new podcasts we have coming down the pipeline. Steve mentions his State of Control, a brand new AV Social posted last Friday as well. So check all that out and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.